Hello students, this is Mrs. Miller, and the purpose of this video is to share my responses to the 3 constructed response questions for C to Shining Sea. Now, the very first thing that I did was I read the questions first. We've talked about this, that it's important to read the questions first because this helps us know what information to look for when we are reading the passage. You should not spend more than 5 minutes decoding the questions or figuring out what the questions are asking you to do. Okay, so please make sure that you're keeping an eye on your time. Don't spend more than 5 minutes figuring out what the questions are asking. So I took my Post-it, and for question number 1, I read the question. It says, compare how the boy and father each feel about the trip. Support your answer with details from the story. Well, I knew that I had to give one detail about how the boy feels. Well, I have to say how the boy feels and give one detail from the story to support that. And I have to say one how the father feels and then give one detail from the story to support that. We've had quite a bit of practice with these types of questions, so I know that it's not going to come right out and tell me in the story how the boy feels and how the dad feels about the trip. I know that I have to read the clues and figure that out, and I'll be looking for that as I'm reading the story. Question number 2 says, how does the author express the theme of compassion in the story? Another word for compassion is care. That's why it's in parentheses there. Support your answer with details from the story. Well, I know that I have to use 2 details to show how the character showed, or a character showed, that he cared for someone else. So that's what I'm going to be looking for as I am reading the story. Question number 3 says, what happens early on in the story to suggest that Max, the cat, might be involved with the missing bolt? Support your answer with details from the story. My friends, this is something called foreshadowing. What happened earlier in the story before the bolt went missing that suggested that Max might have something to do with the missing bolt? And so I know that as I'm reading the story, I have to look for something that happens at the beginning with Max that helps me know that he might have something to do with the bolt. I have to say what happened with Max at the beginning of the story to show that he was involved with the missing bolt. And that is my task. I noticed that some of you told me what was happening near the end of the story with the bolt. That's not what the question is asking. The question is specifically asking what happened with Max at the beginning of the story. That let me know that that made me suspect that he might have something to do with the missing bolt once the bolt came up missing. Okay? Now I would like to share my responses with you. I noticed that as I was reading the story, the answers kind of just popped out at me. And I was even able to underline and look for details that I knew that I wanted to use in my answers. Okay? So for question number 1, here's my response. And I often run out of room when I'm trying to write my explanation, so I doubled up on my lines. And this is something that you can do if you also run out of room. In addition to doing this on the constructed response, you can do this on the essay if you need to, because the essay must fit on the lines that are provided. So for number 1, I'm comparing how the boy and the father each feel about the trip. Well, first I put my answer and I made it very broad, and then I used specific details. The boy and father have opposite feelings about the trip. There's my answer. Now I need details to support it. The boy doesn't want to go. In the text, he states, I don't want to think about it because he will miss 58 days of his time with his friends over summer vacation. Dad is super excited about the trip. The text states that Dad had always dreamed of driving across the country, so now that he has the summer off, he gets to do it. These details show how the boys and Dad's feelings differ about the trip. So I put my answer, and then I used a specific detail from the story to show how the boy feels, and I used a specific detail to support my answer about Dad being really excited about this trip. Okay? Question number 2. How does the author express the theme of compassion or caring in the story? In other words, how do the characters, or how does one of the characters show that he cares about someone else? The author expresses the theme of compassion by showing how the boy cares about his dad's feelings. And so there's my very general answer. And now I'm going to use specific details from the text to support my answer. The text states that when Dad couldn't find the missing bolt, the boy said that he couldn't bear to see Dad disappointed. The text also states that the boy searched for and found the missing bolt since he knew that the trip was so important to his dad. These details show how the author expressed the theme of compassion. So I just pulled those two details to show that the boy really cared about his father. Let's take a look at my response to question number 3. Again, the question says, what happens early on in the story to suggest that Max, the cat, might be involved with the missing bolt? Support your answer with details from the story. Again, I'm talking about what happened at the beginning of the story with Max, or early on in the story, okay? Max's actions in the beginning of the story suggested that Max might be involved with the missing bolt. In the text, Max batted a stray button across the floor. The narrator also stated that Max gets into everything. These details helped me suspect that Max might have something to do with the missing bolt. And so these events that were foreshadowed helped me know that Max was the main culprit, as one of your classmates put, when it came to finding the missing bolt.